I want to thank everybody for attending today's meeting. Would first like to start by expressing the gratitude to our frontline healthcare workers, hospital staff, EMS, firefighters, police, and other first responders. Our grocers, truck drivers, custodians, factory workers, farmers, ranchers, and many others who have been showing up to work and keeping our essential activities going. Their efforts during this unprecedented emergency have been nothing short of heroic. Thanks to these workers and businesses, as well as the leadership of President Trump, our supply chain has endured this pandemic. We've flattened the curve, and every American who needed a ventilator has gotten one. At the same time, I'm disappointed that the Speaker has not asked the House to return to Washington to conduct its business. If American workers are showing up to work, their elected members of Congress should do the same. Moving forward, it is clear that the best form of economic stimulus is a job. The Paycheck Protection Program appears to be functioning as intended and helping our businesses and workers weather this pandemic. In order to build on the promising May jobs report that was just unveiled, we need to reopen economies and get more people back to work. While Governor Tom Wolf has unilaterally kept many Pennsylvania businesses closed, forcing some to go out of business permanently, we have proven in parts of Pennsylvania, that the parts that are open, that this can be done swiftly and safely by trusting our communities to follow proper hygienic and social distancing guidelines. Having said all that, I do have a question for Dr. Roy. Dr. Roy, again, and all the panelists, thank you for participating. But Dr. Roy, with your expertise, looking at the Bureau of Labor Statistics' recent May jobs report, it found that the U.S. non-farm payroll employment increased by 2.5 million jobs last month, many of which include jobs in manufacturing, leisure, and hospitality. I think it's almost half of them, or somewhere around half were in hospitality and food service. If we continue to safely reopen our economy, can we expect to see more promising job numbers going forward?
I hope so, and I hope and expect so. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I would also think that, as we've been talking about what groups of individuals have been hit hardest by this, the fact that the hospitality industry has seen most of this, that we would see more people getting back to work, that need the jobs, and have been unable to work for so long.
Mr. Keller, in my written testimony, and I talked about this in my opening statement as well, the data is quite strong on this point that minority workers who are disproportionately hourly wage workers, the disparity between white and non-white employment has been widened substantially because of the lockdowns. And if we want to narrow those disparities, we should reopen the economy safely, of course.
Yeah, getting business to reopen is only part of the challenge. There are countless students whose education will be interrupted by this pandemic, many of whom reside in rural areas like northeastern and north central Pennsylvania and may not have easy access to online learning. What are some strategies we can use to keep these students engaged and moving forward, improving their skill set and joining the workforce?
Mr. Keller, I'm so glad you brought that up. That is something I wanted to address in my testimony, but it was already getting too long. This is an extremely important point, not just for the children whose education, and disproportionately minority children, by the way, whose education has been suspended or retarded because of the lockdowns, but also their parents. If you're a single mom and you're a pharmacist and you want to go to work, you might not be able to because going to work means leaving your child unattended at home. And so it's incredibly economically important. There are a lot of children who depend on the school lunch program in low-income schools for nutrition. So there are all sorts of aspects to what public schools in particular are doing to help low-income communities go forward. And the closure of schools is not justified by what we know about COVID-19. Disease does not affect children. It can affect elderly janitors, staff, people who work at schools, and we need to protect them and maybe give them paid leave. But children can go to school safely, and if we monitor the at-risk populations that are teaching and caring for those children at schools, we can do that. And we're seeing that in Europe. We're seeing that in Texas and Florida. Schools that are reopening are doing okay.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and I yield back, Mr. Chairman.